British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon, I'm Quinlan Curry, and you're listening to BCIT News. Here are your news, sports, and weather updates to 1:30. Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Metro Vancouver today, ahead of a major infrastructure announcement expected Thursday. Carney is holding 2 appearances in the region this afternoon, highlighting federal budget investments in local projects. The Prime Minister says details on new additions to Ottawa's Major Projects Office will be announced here in BC. The BC Real Estate Association says home sales fell more than 10% in October compared to last year. Nearly 6,400 homes sold last month, but the average price still rose to just under $980,000. Regions like the interior are showing signs of recovery, while the lower mainland continues to lag behind. Vancouver's real estate crunch isn't just impacting housing, it's also putting pressure on the city's sports teams. Despite being one of Canada's most prominent sports markets, Vancouver still lacks a practice facility for the Canucks, something every other NHL team has. Experts say the problem comes down to cost and availability of land.
The reality is that Vancouver is kind of full. There's just not a lot of land, and the land that's there is extremely expensive. And so trying to develop practice facilities close by to the arena itself would be really complicated, given that a lot of that area has already been filled in.
As sports organizations and City Hall clash over funding, the same forces driving up housing prices are now squeezing out sports infrastructure, adding another layer to the debate over space in the city. A New Westminster man has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for sexually assaulting 2 women while working for a recovery services group. Adam Haber will also be on the sex offender registry for 20 years and is banned from owning weapons. Police say 11 women came forward during the investigation. The Sea to Sky Highway will see short closures today as crews perform slope stabilization near Whistler. The highway will close for about 30 minutes starting at 11 a.m. between Alta Lake Road and Taylor Way. Motorists can expect delays and should check Drive BC for updates. Every winter season, Lafarge Lake is lit up like the North Pole every December. The lit up winter wonderland appears overnight, right? Well, not quite. Reporter Jenny Sung has more.
Every year, a group of 1,000 volunteers come together to bring the Lafarge Lake lights to life. Not Santa's elves. The community comes together, students, teachers, and neighbors wrapping trees and untangling lights for a few weeks of winter wonderland. This year, they are short elves, volunteers. Without them, the magic doesn't happen, and the magic is built by the people who show up and make our city a little brighter. Jenny Sung, BCIT News.
The new Cowichan Valley Hospital is now 75% complete and on track to open next year. The 204-bed facility will be the first fully electric hospital in British Columbia, cutting emissions by 80%. It will also carry a dual name, Cowichan Valley Hospital, recognizing the local Cowichan peoples. Canadian Pacific Kansas City says a rock slide may have caused a train derailment earlier this month near Kamloops Lake. 17 rail cars were involved, spilling thousands of liters of jet fuel. CPKC Indigenous Relations and Government Affairs Director Mike Lovecchio told a community meeting in nearby Savona, BC, that an investigation into the derailment could take years to complete.
We have seen reports suggesting a rock slide was the cause. That is one element which is being closely considered. That said, the cause of Saturday's incident remains under investigation.
He adds that while testing is ongoing, sampling of the lake water up to this point shows results that remain within BC's source drinking water quality guidelines. A British Columbia animal sanctuary says it's been getting threats and hate messages since revealing its birds have been sickened by avian flu. The sanctuary says it euthanized several ducks and chickens itself so it could ensure the killings were carried out with dignity. The organization denied the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is trying to cull its other animals and says it has nothing to do with 2 online petitions. The sanctuary outbreak comes after a high-profile cull of ostriches at a BC farm last week. The BC SPCA says it will end its animal control agreement with the city of Quesnel at the end of the year. The organization says its facility has been overstretched, and the change will allow it to focus on animals in crisis and abuse cases. It will continue investigations, adoptions, and fostering services. Moving on to national news. New data shows Canadians are continuing to shun travel to the U.S. Michelle Zedikian from the Canadian Press has more on the story.
October marked yet another month of year-over-year declines in Canadians returning from trips to the U.S. Statistics Canada's preliminary figures show Canadian resident return trips from the U.S. by car dropped nearly 31% in the month. Return trips by plane sank 24%. Instead, Canadians were traveling overseas. The number of trips returning from overseas countries rose roughly 7% in October. Michelle Zedikian, The Canadian Press.
In international news, the U.S. House is back in Washington and could vote on a plan to end the government shutdown. Newly elected Democrat Adelita Grijalva will be sworn in this afternoon, potentially the key vote to force a floor vote compelling the release of the full Epstein records. It follows Democrats on the House Oversight Committee publishing email excerpts that reference former President Trump, including a 2011 note where Epstein told Ghislaine Maxwell, "The dog hasn't barked, it's Trump," and another claiming an alleged victim spent hours with Trump at Epstein's home. ABC's Jay O'Brien has more on Grijalva's swearing in.
She'll be sworn in by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson after more than 7 weeks after she won that special election to replace her late father. She gets sworn in around 4 o'clock today, and she said her first order of business will be to sign this discharge petition, this procedural effort that when she signs it and gives it the last signature it needs, will force a vote on the House floor to compel the release of other Epstein records, tens of thousands of other records pages that the Department of Justice has.
On the other side, President Donald Trump is pushing back against these allegations, calling the released emails a manufactured hoax. The White House says Democrats are selectively leaking to smear Trump and distract from the shutdown fight. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the administration is focused on reopening the government as the House moves towards the vote this week.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep.
Trump denies any knowledge of Epstein's crimes and rejects claims he knew about the girls. And now, here are your sports updates. Ahead of this weekend's Grey Cup in Winnipeg, a new poll shows interest in the CFL continues to slip. The Angus Reid Institute found just 16% of Canadians follow the league closely, down from 21% in 2018. The survey also found most diehard fans reject upcoming rule changes, including a longer play clock and a smaller field set for 2027. BC Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke called the new rules garbage, while veteran Bo Levi Mitchell defended them as a way to modernize the game. Onto the pitch. Despite finishing last in the Canadian Premier League, Vancouver FC has earned a spot in the 2025 CONCACAF Champions Cup. The team qualified through its Cinderella run to the Canadian Championship Final, where it fell 4-2 to the Vancouver Whitecaps. Interim coach Martin Nash says the tournament is a good measuring stick for a young squad that finished the year unbeaten in its last 6. The draw for the 2017 tournament takes place December 9th. The Winnipeg Jets snapped a 3-game skid with a 5-3 win over the Vancouver Canucks. Josh Morrissey had a goal and 2 assists, and Connor Hellebuyck stopped 30 shots for the win. Thatcher Demko left the game after the first period with an injury. The Canucks' penalty kill remains a problem, now ranked 31st in the league. Vancouver now heads out on a 3-game road trip starting Friday in Carolina. In the NFL MVP race is tightening as Matthew Stafford emerges as the frontrunner after 3 straight games with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Jonathan Taylor and quarterback Drake May aren't far behind, with May guiding the Patriots to an 8-2 start. Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson round out the top 5 as the season hits its midpoint. Moving to the hardwood, the NBA has announced a new format for this season's All-Star Game. Gethin Coolbaugh from the Associated Press reports.
The NBA has announced a new format for this season's All-Star Game, featuring a U.S. versus the world theme. Teams will consist of American and international players, with a mix of voting and selection processes. The game will be a round-robin tournament held on Saturday, February 15th in Inglewood, California. The NBA hopes this format will reignite interest in the mid-season event and aims for a more competitive and engaging All-Star experience. The game will coincide with the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics, tapping into global national pride. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
In baseball, results for American League Manager of the Year have come out. Greg Strong from the Canadian Press reports.
John Schneider had 10 of 30 first-place votes and 91 points in voting by the Baseball Writers Association of America. Stephen Vogt picked up 17 first-place votes and had 113 points overall. Schneider guided the Blue Jays to a 94-win season and American League East title after finishing last in the division a year earlier. Toronto went on to reach the World Series before falling to the LA Dodgers in 7 games. Award ballots were cast before the start of the postseason. Greg Strong, the Canadian Press, Toronto.
Elsewhere in the league, the Dallas Mavericks have fired general manager Nico Harrison, an admission that the blockbuster trade of Luka Doncic backfired. The move follows a 116-114 loss to Milwaukee and fan chants calling for Harrison's dismissal. And for your weather update, Environment Canada has issued a rainfall warning for Metro Vancouver and Howe Sound, with up to 60 millimeters expected by Thursday. Areas affected include the North Shore, Coquitlam, and Maple Ridge. And those were your news, sports, and weather updates to 1:30 p.m. I'm Quinlan Curry, and you're listening to BCIT News.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's.
When I tell people that I studied journalism, they immediately say, oh, you want to be a reporter. But I think, in my case personally, I really want to go into magazines, PR, social media, and I think here at school we learn a lot of skills that allow you to go into that world, because you learn how to write for social media, social content, for websites,